So tonight we're going to be hearing from Andrew Butts, the founder and executive director of Green Neighbor Challenge. I may or may not have had that right, so Andrew, feel free to correct me. And also with us tonight is Sophia Fisher. She is supporting Andrew and will be dropping numerous links in the chat throughout tonight. We will be following up with everybody after the webinar and sending out a recording of it along with the links and the slide deck so you can refer back to it. All right, and without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you everybody, for coming today. I built a whole new slide deck for you all. Basically from scratch over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't even know what time is anymore. And so I have not timed this out. And so I appreciate you bearing with me. I may get to talking quickly so that I can keep you all on time. But as Joanna said, the recording will go out, slide deck will go out. So it's definitely, this is a big topic that you'll want to follow up with links and stuff for. So that's why we want to make sure it's available to you all. All right, can everyone see my screen? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to presenter view then. And without any further ado, so today we're going to, the rough agenda is first I'm going to do an introduction and some foregrounding. Then I'm going to cover, what are the big challenges and opportunities before us? What is the Green Neighbor Challenge? How can it help me navigate my home energy transition? Why should I make these transitions? How can I help my community make the transition? And then some final thoughts, supporting resources, and hopefully plenty of time for question and answer. And so just to tell you all a little bit about me, I grew up in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, just south of Waukesha County. So I'm really excited to be back talking to Southeast Wisconsin. I moved to Madison, and then I moved to Racine, Kenosha area, and then I moved to Minneapolis, and then actually I moved to St. Paul, and then I moved back to Madison. So been kind of all around, Midwest, a lot of Southeast Wisconsin. And I grew up really close to the Pleasant Prairie coal plant, and I grew up with asthma, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. I'm the son of a printing pressman and a Snap-on dealer support specialist. I'm a first-generation college student and graduate student. I spent my youth in the Scouts and spent 7 summers on camp staff, which gave me a real love of the environment and of teaching. I went to school and studied business, communications, and environmental policy. In my work, I've been a supply chain analyst, a freelance filmmaker, a researcher, and an educator. And my interests are in energy, democracy, systems, games, learning, and philosophy, basically anything. And I am involved in Science for the People, PowerShift Network, and the REAMP Network, in both personal and professional capacities. And today I'd like to talk to you all really about sort of 3 big themes. First is hope, the second is gratitude, and the third is action, so that you can understand a little bit about how I approach all of this. I want to start with a quote from Hope in the Dark. This was actually the book that inspired, this came before the Green Neighbor Challenge came to me. While I was reading it in a particularly dark time, and a friend had shared this book with me to help me through it. And a particular passage stood out. Hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and that in that spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcomes, you alone, or you in concert with a few dozen or several million others. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and unknowable, an alternative to the certainty of both optimists and pessimists. Optimists think it will all be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. Both excuse themselves from acting. Great book, highly recommend it. And so as I mentioned earlier, I grew up not far from the Pleasant Prairie coal plant. In fact, as it turns out, exactly downwind from it, as with some of the neighbors on this call. It's something that it's also astonishing to me. You could literally see it from on Google Earth. It still exists on Google Earth. You can see it in the distance there. One thing that I didn't really, growing up, we referred to it as the cloud factory. I didn't really piece together its significance to my asthma in life. It wasn't until grad school that I started to really make sense of it. And what we now know from the scientific consensus is that, basically the air quality benefits arrive much sooner than climate benefits. They are, at least for the next several decades, much larger. They can be secured without the cooperation of other countries, and by generating an average of $700 billion a year in avoided health and labor costs, they will more than pay for the energy transition on their own. And if the numbers are shocking about air pollution, it's because the science has been developing very rapidly. And the evidence is now clear enough that it can be stated unequivocally, it would be worth freeing ourselves from fossil fuels, even if global warming didn't exist. And so these are actual pictures of, for folks that have been to Pleasant Prairie, you probably recognize it, the Pleasant Prairie coal plant. The good news, which I also discovered in grad school, is that the cost of wind and solar have been dropping, not just slowly, but very, very rapidly. The cost of wind has dropped 70% in the last 10, 12 years, and solar has dropped 89% in the last 10 or 12 years. These cost reductions are pushing fossil fuels out of the energy mix very rapidly, and we're at a tipping point. And I also had the pleasure this past year of getting to see, at least video, I unfortunately wasn't there in person, but getting to see the start and the end of the demolition of the Pleasant Prairie coal plant. And so the way technology has moved and the new possibilities for greener forms of energy generation fill me with hope that communities can live with cleaner air and have brighter futures. And I'm glad that Pleasant Prairie will be experiencing that, but there are so many more communities that still need our help to transition. And so I'd love for folks, if there's things that give you hope that you're hopeful about, regardless of their energy or not, feel free to drop those in the chat so other people can see and share and feel a little bit of sense of community with you here. Second is I'd like to express a lot of gratitude. I'd like to express gratitude for thoughtful neighbors like you for showing up. I'm really, really excited. And I've also been pretty nervous about putting this presentation on, but especially excited that Waukesha County has, that I'm back in Southeast Wisconsin talking about the thing I love. And so really thankful to the Waukesha County Green Team for the chance to talk in Southeast Wisconsin, for the opportunities my parents afforded me when they left Chicago, for my grandmother and all the stubbornness that she gave all of us, for the Scouts, which helped me find joy in service, community, and nature, for the 40 volunteers and interns who helped the Green Neighbor Challenge get to its public launch in April 2022, so just last year, for the 5,000 users that we've had and the organizations that have helped us reach them, for our 42 donors for COVID stimulus and relief, which also really helped me get through these times without funding, and our most recent environmental justice data fund grant, we just received in September. Of course, for my current amazing team, I can't say enough about them. For the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually empowers all of us to join the energy transition in ways that weren't possible just a matter of months ago. And for the radicals, visionaries, and organizers who have and continue to lovingly transform the present towards more compassionate futures. Green Neighbor Challenge is not something that I made. It's not just me. It was a lucky discovery in a graduate school class that these programs existed, a chance that I posted on Facebook and got a ton of interest from friends, started helping them investigate these options. And through that process, realizing, why hasn't anyone made this easy to switch to green energy when these programs are so widespread? And over the course of 4 years, these are the people who helped make it happen. and are continuing to help make the Green Neighbor Challenge happen, and the networks we've been a part of that have filled us with ideas and inspired us along the way. And so what I think has held us all together is our mission, which is really to help ordinary residents navigate the energy transition and engage their community in energy democracy. And we're guided by two values, which is creating hope through collective action and strengthening community capacities for self-determination. We really come from a very bottom-up approach. We see ourselves as residents, as the core customers of our work. We're trying to help ourselves at the same time we're trying to help others. And so the Green Neighbor Challenge is for you. It's for residents. It's for anyone with a utility bill. It's for people who are employees, people who are managers, people who are directors, people who are educators, teachers, or students. They're all residents. For community organizers, people that are reaching out to other members of their community, trying to engage them in change, community leaders shaping new possibilities, and energy navigators, whether they be contractors or labor providers, nonprofit professionals, or government employees, civil servants. Anyone can really get involved in this. And we're trying to help all these different, residents of all different types and places. But ultimately, I'd like to say that my personal reason for building the Green Neighbor Challenge has been my way of saying thanks to all of the people who have helped get me to where we are today, where I am today, and what I've been capable of doing. And so it's also my invitation to them to join me and join us in this transition and to continue paying it forward. And so my question to all of you, which I also hope you drop in the chat, is, grounding yourself, who are your people that matter to you? Who are you most grateful for today? Because that's the heart, that's the heart of the Green Neighbor Challenge, is the neighbors, the people that make our lives, fill our lives with meaning. And so I'd like to, start and acknowledge that a lot of us come from a place where we're dealing with a lot of heavy emotions that hold us back, whether that's fear and anxiety, whether that's climate grief, whether that's anger or a sense of despair and depression. These things can leave us feeling hopeless. They can leave us feeling powerless, overwhelmed, directionless, because we have to deal with the size and complexity of this enormous problem. And because we don't have enough information, because we feel excluded from the solutions, because we don't have enough resources, or because we're impacted by the infrastructure that we're trying to change, oftentimes leading us to feel a sense of insufficiency in what we're capable of doing, and generating a sort of self-defeating outlook of what we could accomplish. But what I want to say is that all of those negative feelings, I felt them all, I've dealt with all of them, is that they're also a gift. They are the raw material for meaning making. Here are some quotes I draw inspiration from. Is the very act of mourning is the display, the manifestation of a commitment that I will make meaning here, that I will try to understand what this meaning is rather than just give it up or give up. As long as I fight, I am moved by hope. And if I fight with hope, then I can wait. And resistance is the secret of joy. So returning to all of these heavy feelings is we have an opportunity to find catharsis, I think, through action from everything I've learned. So we can start to transform fear and anxiety into purpose. We can transform grief into mastery. We can transform anger into connection, despair and depression into agency or a sense of autonomy, so that we can be hopeful, powerful, joyful, insightful, feeling interconnected with one another as part of a collective. We can be informed, we can be included and inclusive. We are capable, impactful, self-sufficient, and we can also be an inspiration to others. That's what I think the Green Neighbor Challenge is about. So I hope that all resonates with you. Our theory of change is really meeting people where they're at and moving them along this continuum of change, starting this journey from harm reduction, which is where we clean up the pollution associated with our energy use, into forms of distributed energy where we're producing our own energy, or we're investing in energy efficiency technologies to reduce our demand, and getting eventually to the place where we're knowledgeable enough that we can start to shape our energy systems locally and say, this is what we envision for our community. This is what our community wants. This is what we deserve. This is what we need. And so there's a huge, at the social level, going from the personal to the social, there's a huge opportunity in the energy transition. This isn't just about climate. This is about cleaner air. It's about having cleaner, more plentiful, fresh water. It's about having better mental and physical health. It's about having more comfortable homes to live in. It's having lower energy bills, energy burdens, and fuel costs. It's safer and more secure jobs for people who work in the energy economy. It's more profitable and productive farms, actually. It involves, greater local tax revenues and tax assets. As we distribute this technology of generation, more communities get to be a part of that and benefit from it. It's about regenerating our ecosystems and our habitats, because we can start to conserve actually a lot more land than we currently are. And it's reducing global instability, which I don't like to worry about global issues. And I assume a lot of people in Southeast Wisconsin, I know the type, I don't like to think about the global issues. Part of it is avoiding that before we have to deal with it. And so, the challenge, that's the opportunity. The national challenge we have is really how do we engage in a national electrification mobilization? There are 122 million US homes that need to be retrofitted and electrified over the next 20 years. This is unprecedented in my lifetime, most of your lifetimes, and what we have in front of us is the Inflation Reduction Act, which provides up to $3,200 a year in tax credits direct to residents, and will be providing up to $14,000 in upfront rebates for home energy upgrades to low and moderate income homes over the next 10 years. From a recent podcast I listened to, this is one of the most helpful framings I've heard, is the thing that worries me most is that people are not adopting a World War II footing. I think people are saying, thank goodness we passed this policy. Now things are going to be better. But I need everybody to grow a war garden. That's what I need. I need you to get on the calculator and figure out how to electrify your home. I need you to figure out what electric vehicle works for you and your family. I need you to figure out how to go to your city council and your school board meeting and say, what the hell? Why do you not have electric school buses? And why did you not apply for electric school buses at the EPA? We don't need 20% of the entire American population in the streets like we had for the first Earth Day, but we do need like a couple million. We have got to achieve the best outcomes with this money. So I think this is the challenge before us, is how do we mobilize as if, it's a wartime mobilization, but we're not at war with an enemy. We are at war with our energy economy. And for many of you, I assume electrification is not a word you're very used to hearing. It's kind of the newer, cooler thing to talk about in the energy space among us energy nerds. But why electrification matters and what electrification means is, as we switch our energy over to electric rather than and away from fossil fuels, we're actually doing two things simultaneously. We are creating massive energy efficiency gains. So this chart actually shows that as we switch our electricity generation away from fossil fuels, 25% of our primary energy needs go away, because a lot of that is lost to heat when we burn fossil fuels. And similarly, as we switch our cars, trucks, etc., transportation, we save significantly more. Again, saving the energy that we waste to heat, for our heat pumps in our homes, for all of the energy that gets spent just moving, extracting fossil fuels and transporting them around the globe. There's significant efficiency that happens through electrification. And then on top of that is by electrifying all of our sort of applications of energy, we have the ability then to decarbonize it. So what is the Green Neighbor Challenge? Well, the Green Neighbor Challenge is a free online toolkit to help you navigate your home energy transition. We've got 3 tools. One is green energy to help homeowners and renters find and sign up for green pricing programs, green retail supply programs, or renewable energy certificate programs. Second is save energy to help you find home energy efficiency and electrification incentives, as well as access your state energy and weatherization assistance programs, hopefully soon. We haven't done that yet. We're working on it. And the third tool is solar options to help you explore your rooftop solar suitability, request quotes, and compare available community solar options. So we are largely responsible for building a database to help people connect to green energy. A lot of these other tools, however, what we are doing is connecting the most useful resources and services out there and trying to put them all in one place to make it easy for residents to access and understand them, ultimately to make collective action easier. This is basically what our landing page looks like, so you're not scared of it when you first see it. But I want to keep moving, and we'll explore the site a little more later. When you're starting this journey, is a lot. This is a long journey. And the best guide that I have encountered out there is by Rewiring America. It's called Electrify Everything in Your Home. It lays out steps 1 through 10, what you should be considering as a homeowner, and it even highlights which ones are relevant to renters. And this is an entirely free guide. I've got the links in like 8 different places. We'll keep referring back to this, but this is your home energy transition roadmap. I highly recommend downloading this and printing the checklists out and using it as a guide as you try to understand lots of these other technologies. As I mentioned in the appendix, there's separate checklists. Print these out, put them on your refrigerator. For homeowners and for renters, everybody's got a role to play. Yeah, so not to overwhelm you though with all of those things, we try to keep things a little bit more simple. So rather than 10 steps, you've got 3, even though there's a lot of little sub steps within those. So let's start with green energy. How can I get green energy? Well, basically is a lot of utilities offer, so green pricing programs allow utility customers to pay a different rate for energy, usually slightly more, though in a few cases less, in exchange for certifiably renewable sources of energy. Utilities offer green pricing programs often because state laws or regulatory pressure requires them to, but regulated utilities usually cannot profit from these programs. As a result, 73% of homes have access to a green pricing program. 14% of people are aware that they have a program, and only 2% have signed up. This is the challenge that we set out to solve with Green Neighbor Challenge. And this map on the right-hand side shows all the green spaces is where there's green pricing programs. All the yellowish orange is where there are retail supply programs, slightly different, but more or less the exact same thing. They just don't have monopoly utilities. They have a wide range of utilities to pick from. And then everyone that lives in a blue region, there are unbundled renewable energy certificates that you can buy through our site. So in effect, everybody has an option. There's just different shades of very similar sorts of things. And so why should I get green energy? First is that because the cost of energy, renewable energy has fallen so rapidly, the average home on the average program can now go entirely green with their electricity for less than $10 a month. It's like $9.70 something is the national average. Signing up can usually be done in 5 minutes or less online. And this single action will help you eliminate 20 to 30% of your home's total embodied emissions, right? That's really powerful that you can do something so quickly. And it is the essential first step in a home energy transition, and it grows more impactful as we shift our heating and cooling, our cooking, and our vehicles over to electricity from their fossil fuel based sources. Energy in total represents about 65% of our embodied home emissions. So that's the upward potential as we electrify. And the food, goods, and services that we use drive the remainder of our home's emissions. So, and to put a finer point on all of this, why should I spend money on energy? Is for every dollar, so this is US wide, for every dollar spent on green pricing, there's about $2.41 in public health benefits. This is using EPA figures. And from that same study, it's actually far more pronounced. We have very dirty air here in the Midwest. In the Midwest, it's upwards of, it'd be every dollar is about $6 in health benefits, because a lot of our programs cost about 1 cent per kilowatt hour. That's exactly what it costs, or 1.1 cents for WI Energies. It's 1 cent in Minnesota. So that's, a way to multiply our impact. So what does this all look like in practice? Well, here's the website. I'm pulling it up. So basically all you do, go to greenneighborchallenge.org. You can type in your zip code. So I'm going to type in my old home zip code in Pleasant Prairie, 53158. Click go. And then it pulls up the utilities that operate in that area and whatever programs they may have. So I assume many of you are under WI Energies. You can see their program is called Energy for Tomorrow. Most of the energy within it comes from wind, though a small portion of it comes from solar. The net cost is 1.16 cents per kilowatt hour. You can see for the typical apartment in the region, that's about $5.35 extra a month on your bill. For the average home here, that's about $10.40 a month on your bill. You can sign up based on percentage of your usage each month. This program is Greenie certified, which is the highest certification available for green pricing programs. So that's really great. And your contract is month to month. And you can look up some other details. There's no termination fee. You will need your account name and account number to sign up. So once you say, hey, this is great, I'm going to select that. I'll do that in a second, but I'll also just say for folks that don't have a great option, you can always purchase unbundled RECs. RECs are renewable energy certificates. They're the fundamental legal mechanism of how we track who owns the right to renewable energy. There are several services. There's only one that's nonprofit that sells RECs from the Pacific Northwest. They're really great nonprofit, really great group. We include this as an option for anyone that doesn't have an option or has a ridiculously priced option. You can always purchase unbundled RECs and contribute to renewable energy in the Pacific Northwest, which helps decarbonize the grid everywhere, because energy is being shifted and sold across the grid all day, every day. But going to WI Energies, we provide the links so you can click and see. Here's the program FAQ. We link directly to it. If you want to reach out to WI Energies, we've collected all their contact information, so you can pull that up. And if you want to enroll, you just click the enrollment link. Unfortunately, it's going to ask you to log in. So hopefully you know your login credentials. But once you log in, it'll take you to the enrollment form. So that's how that works. And once you come back to this page, this pops up and we'll encourage you to try out our other tools. But for now, I'm going to go back to the presentation. Just to show you, I asked my mom actually to send me her WI Energies bill. This last month, it cost her $8.19 for 707 kilowatt hours. That's 2 people in a 2-bedroom condo. One of them's retired and always there. And so that is about a 5.6% increase in the electric cost, a 7% increase in the electricity rate. But going back to the health benefits in our region, that looks like something between $17 and $43 in public health benefits, according to the EPA. So that's the power, I think, of green energy. And folks, often ask me, especially energy experts, because they say, well, renewables are so cheap. They're cheaper than coal. They're cheaper than gas. Why should I pay more? because those that have the financial power to do so should not allow our utilities to dump pollution onto everybody else. I think this is a basic decency thing. This is a moral question. We shouldn't be doing this to our hardworking neighbors. Green energy is a great place to start as residents, but it shouldn't be the last thing we do. And this, like a lot of things, I'll also say regarding public health, is there's a huge racial disparity in how pollution visits certain communities over others, as well as a big income wealth disparity in where pollution is located. So I really do think it's important for those that have the financial ability to support green energy to do so. And so moving on to the second thing is, how can I save energy? And the short answer is in so many ways. This is where, again, I really encourage you download the Electrify Everything guide, print out the checklist, put it on your refrigerator. But some of the big things, big categories is really through heat pumps, which will cover your heating and cooling, can cover your water heating, and even help with clothes drying, through induction stoves and electric cooking, and through electric vehicles or e-bikes. Our web tool features several services to help you find tax credits and rebates to make these upgrades cheaper. So I'm going to talk you through some and all of this next. So some of you are probably like, heat pump, what's that? Well, the simplest way to describe it is, heat pump is something that moves heat from one space to another using a compressed refrigerant. It happened, you probably already have them in your home. So your air conditioner and your refrigerator are both heat pumps. That's how they operate. They are, however, one-way heat pumps. They only compress and evaporate the refrigerants in one direction, moving heat from the inside of the device or home to the outside. Modern heat pumps work in both directions. They allow the refrigerant to flow either way and shift where the compression and expansion is happening. And so you can use them to both heat your home during the winter and cool your home during the summer, or your water or your clothes. I don't know why you would want to cool your water or your clothes, but you could do it if you wanted to. And one of the great things about them is how efficient they are. So the energy that you put into a heat pump is only the energy that takes to move that refrigerant around. Instead, it's leveraging existing heat from the outside or heat from the inside that's being shifted. And so that's why, compared to something like electric resistance heat, it's way more efficient, and certainly more efficient than burning fossil fuels. There's so much more to be said about heat pumps, and I can't tell you about all of them now, but these are two really wonderful videos about a guy from Canada explaining them to you. Great sense of humor. He answers all sorts of listener questions. If you want to know more about heat pumps, I definitely recommend checking these out. And of course, recommend reading the section on heat pumps in the Electrify Everything in Your Home. If you want a second, the way I found out about these videos is through reading Electrify Everything in Your Home. They recommend watching his videos because they're that good on this topic. Oh, okay, it's going to autoplay them. There we go. All right. Another technology I mentioned is induction stoves. So what is an induction stove? In short, it's powered by magnets. And one downside is it does require magnetic pans. However, induction stovetops, compared to gas, they can heat things up quicker. They give you more control over the temperature of your cooking. They are much easier to clean than gas stoves. They're safer to use. They are significantly less toxic to the air quality in your home. They require less energy and ultimately are cheaper to use. There's some technological explanations of how it works, but the energy that moves through the electromagnet from your outlet is alternating current. It oscillates from positive to negative 60 times a second. That oscillation basically vibrates the molecules in your pan and that vibration produces heat. And that's roughly how induction works. Why should I work on saving energy? I say there's two big categories of reasons. One is because you can save money. And not only can you save money saving energy, but you can save money in the process of saving money. So there's two layers of saving money. So through the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a calculator that can help you navigate what incentives are available to you and which ones make sense. But through the IRA, there's $2,000 a year that you can claim in tax incentive, the tax credits for heat pumps that you get installed. It covers installation costs as well as the material technology costs. $1,200 a year for other electrification and efficiency upgrades. This includes getting your electric panel upgraded, getting new wiring, getting efficient windows, doors. It includes EV chargers. It includes your induction stove tops, all sorts of things. And there's also a credit for a home energy audit if you decide to go through with one of those. Additionally, we also help folks find there's a lot of incentives through your local utilities or local governments. Here in Wisconsin, Focus on Energy is really the place to go. But nationally, we often point people towards Desire, which is the database for state incentives for renewables and efficiency. That's operated out of North Carolina State University. Or if you want to take the easy and lazy route, there's a business called Incentifind, which will produce a report for you, an interactive report for $25. That's good for 2 years, and they keep updating it with anything new that comes out. I will say, Focus on Energy in particular. So Wisconsin residents, every year, every 12 months, you can request a free home efficiency pack. Everybody should do that. Link went out in the email that went out yesterday. Probably another link going out, and I'll show you where it's at a little later on. As well as lots of other, all the home upgrades that we talked about. A lot of utilities also offer those. And then second, why you should save energy is because it can help you live better. And I have maybe a myopic view of living better, but the way I lay it out is all fossil fuels release pollutants. This is true in your home. When we burn gas in our home, we're releasing pollutants in our home. And it's true outside your home. Switching from gas to electric allows us to reduce harmful pollutants, and the fewer pollutants that we breathe, the better our health is. And then on top of that, modern electric technologies outperform fuel-based alternatives and are getting better every single day. So they can make life easier. And it's really quite simple. As Woodsy once told us, give a hoot, don't pollute. And for folks that are unaware, there's been a lot of really great studies out very recently about how gas stoves in homes have been a major contributor to asthma, childhood asthma in the United States, because those pollutants don't hover up at the top of our rooms, they hover down, they sink down to the bottom where children are. And so they are the most affected and impacted by the pollution that comes from when we burn gas in our homes. And two is I'm a renter. I've been a renter ever since I left the home I grew up in. And people say, well, what about renters? Everyone always talks about homeowners. Well, here's some cool pictures from my kitchen. I've been really excited to rethink what our kitchen cooking experience is like. I hate our gas stove, how hard it is to clean, and we don't have a lot of counter space, and it's a waste of counter space being there. So got this great cutting board to cover that up, got an induction cooktop that we can use when we do want to use a stove. So that's electric. Got my Instapot, my air fryer, as well as my toaster oven. Everything's electric now. And then I got this cool organizer that I threw into the oven. So now that's where we store all of our pots and pans because we don't need that either. So more counter space, more storage space. Life is great as a renter. And so for renters, when you buy, instead of buying a portable or window air conditioning unit, buy a window or portable heat pump so that you can use it during the winter. These portable induction stoves, you can get them for $50, $60, $70. As well as don't forget to switch out your lighting to LEDs, getting smart power strips that turn off the power to avoid the sort of ghost power leach of a lot of our electronics, as well as Rewiring America says renters can also invest in EVs and clothes dryers. I don't know if that's high on renters' lists of things to do, maybe not mine, but if you do live in a place that has EV chargers nearby, it could be handy. And the important thing is, even though the credits don't cover this, the state rebates that are rolling out from the IRA will include renters. You will be able, for low and moderate income homes, apply them towards tabletop induction stoves or portable heat pumps, etc. So you're not left out. How can I find and understand these incentives? How am I doing on time? Okay, things are going well. I don't want to let's not think about it. So there's 4 things I'll show you quickly, kind of how you can find it on our site. So if, for example, you just got to, where was it? If you got to the end of the green pricing thing, it has these 2 buttons, solar option or save energy. Those will take you to the other tool. If you're just coming back to the website for the first time, it wants to push you towards green energy. We're thinking about changing this, but there's this menu button in the upper left-hand corner. Click that and it pulls up our other tools. So that through that, you can navigate to our save energy tool. So let's type in 53158 again to this tool. There are a series of cards that'll pop up. So first is Rewiring America. They have an Inflation Reduction Act calculator. It's amazing. Let me pull this up real quick so you can see it. These are the folks who make that Electrify Everything guide. They were involved in the lobbying for the bill. They produce extraordinary educational resources, funny videos, everything. They are huge proponents of electrification. And so if you type in your zip code, your homeowner status, you can be a renter, your income, tax filing, they're not trying to collect this. They're just trying to help you identify which of all of these, so there's all these state rebates, all these tax credits that the Inflation Reduction Act is rolling out. And this helps you narrow down which ones are going to apply to you. And then you can click in and learn a ton about why these individual things matter, how you can utilize them, how do you sign up for them. And unfortunately, one thing you'll notice is the rebates all say late 2023. This is because the rebates are going through the states. States are going to implement the rebates, and a lot of them currently do not have the capacity they are staffing up, they are creating plans for how to roll out these rebates, and then they have to get federal approval before they start to give away that money. And so it's estimated that's going to take a lot of most states until later this year, possibly early next year, before that's available. So look for more guidance from your local energy nonprofits as the year goes on. Going back to our tool, another resource out there is Desire. I mentioned that North Carolina State University. We've got 2 cards here. One will show you only rebates, one will show you all incentives. The reason why we have 2 cards is we pre-filter the database for you when you go through our tool, because it can be kind of a pain to narrow everything down just to stuff that's sort of relevant to you. But even when you search for all incentives, you can see 19 programs show up. A lot of these don't apply to actual residents. There's a lot of tax credits, a lot of loans. A lot of these things are for residential builders rather than residential residents. But there are some things that are a little hard for us to filter exactly to what you need, just because of the way the database is set up. To make things a little bit easier, we have the rebates only card, since that will hopefully narrow down how many things show up. And it does. So you go from 19 to 4. And while you're here, one thing I noticed, which is a little unfortunate, so you may click on the Renewable Rewards Program and say, I wonder if that applies to me. And it's going to point you towards Focus on Energy, which is great, because this is the best resource really for Wisconsin residents. All of our utilities kick in money to them to provide energy efficiency incentives to you. However, the link that they provided redirects you only to the residential solar incentive. So there is a incentive for home solar, but if you want to get to the general residential and not the solar for homes, you can go down here and click on, or go up here rather, rebates and incentives, go to residential. And then this is actually the correct link so that you can start to walk through what are, all of the incentives that that I can do for heating, cooling, insulation, air sealing, smart thermostats, water heating, solar for homes, new home construction, or insulation and air sealing. One thing really important, I call out everybody that hasn't done this in the last 12 months, free energy saving packs. They're free. All you got to do, click in, order now. There's 4 options. So you can get some free bulbs, some pipe insulation, night lights, shower heads, power strips, smart power strips. You pick the pack. You can't order them all. You got to pick one. You get one every 12 months, but you just add it to cart, type in your address and your utility account number, and they ship it to you in 4 to 6 weeks. So do it. And even if you don't need it, do it anyways, and then go and give the extra stuff to your neighbor. It's my pitch there. And then lastly is Incentifind. This is a service, as I mentioned, you can pay $25. So if you want the simplest way to get a report of everything that's available to you, you can pay them and they will produce a report that looks like this. So it gives you kind of a high level overview of what rebates, tax incentives are available to you. It shows you timelines of when things are due. And then, there's my timer, I'm over time. I'm gonna keep going. Then you can see your incentives organized at the utility level, state or city level, state, federal. You can favorite things if you want. And then it has instructions on what eligibility is, what it's going to cost, what the time frame is, and how do you actually sign up for those things. So it's sort of an interactive online report, and you have access to that for up to 2 years, and it stays up to date. The other nice thing is if you do go the lazy route through Incentifind, no offense to Incentifind, they're great. We've partnered with them, and we actually get a small commission for anyone that uses this referral link that we recommend. Doesn't cost you any more, but it does help us. But you can find a lot of this same information through Desire and through Rewiring America. Okay, moving back. So how then, third step was going solar. So there's rooftop solar, which the typical home spends $10,000 to $20,000 to install it. Annual savings is $1,200 to $2,500. Typical payback periods is in 10 to 20 years, depending on how much sun. And then the typical project lifespan is 30 years. There is a 30% tax credit that's been extended for another 10 years because of the IRA. And you can now also install a electric panel upgrade and home battery that if you do it with your solar installation, all falls under the same tax credit. But you have to do it all at the same time. So that's one catch there. But we have a few tools here, which is you can use Google Project Sunroof to see your rooftop solar potential, or you can use Energy Sage to see competing qualified solar quotes. I'll show you those in a little bit. And then community solar, unfortunately, for most people in Wisconsin, they don't have access to community solar because our state hasn't enabled community solar laws. It's only in 13 states, but the cool thing about that is you're basically getting a solar share of a solar field. So there's no upfront cost. You get savings on your bill every month, usually of 10 to 15% of your electricity costs. You're immediately saving money, and your typical contract length is 10 to 30 years. And there are now tax credits for community solar developers, which I think is lighting a fire under states that don't have community solar laws in place to get those in place to allow more development to happen in states. So we have 2 tools to help with that. Energy Sage helps in these 13 states and DC, and then Join Solar helps in Minnesota and Maine. This is where I'm going to turn it over to Joanna to plug an opportunity coming up next year.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And I have to apologize. I was supposed to be like Andrew's timekeeper, but I was so fascinated and engrossed, I totally lost track of time myself, Andrew. So it was great. This has been so fascinating. So I just want to plug real quick. Here in Waukesha in Jefferson County, we've partnered with the MREA on some Grow solar group buys. So we've done 2 so far, and we have one planned coming up again in next year. So if you're not familiar with a group buy program, basically they're geographical in nature, and actually the MREA is putting on geothermal and heat pump group buys. They're testing them in certain Midwest markets. So that's something to look out for too. But basically residents pool together their buying power. We send out RFPs to the solar energy companies. We vet the company. We choose a very high quality solar installer. There's a discount for participating. There's additional rebates for participating. So in our first 2 solar group buys, we ended up in Waukesha and Jefferson County, helping 85 homeowners go solar for a combined 900 kilowatts of installed solar, which is fantastic. So if solar is something you've ever considered and you just want to learn more about it, there's a lot of things to think about for solar. And we're going to be offering several webinars over the next year about getting solar ready. And so all those things you have to think about, your roof and what's that installation process like and all of that. So the first one's going to be on April 15th, and I will send out a plug for that in the follow-up email in case that's something anyone is interested in. So, all right, back to you, Andrew.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I do want to apologize for anyone that has to hop off after 60 minutes. This is taking much longer, but I'm hoping this is really engaging and interesting to you all. So I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm happy to stick around as long as people have questions tonight, though maybe Joanna might not. So why should you go solar? It helps you reduce your energy costs. It helps grow renewable energy supply, reduce fossil fuel demand. It can reduce pollution and emissions across our grid. It does actually increase property values, and where coal plants and gas plants go away, that also dramatically increases property values. Surprise, surprise. It helps reduce utility monopoly power, right? Generating our own electricity is a great way to take profits away from the monopolies that we love to hate. And it's an inspiration to your neighbors. Convince them that going solar is possible. And the nice thing is actually that renewables, they displace all the fossil fuels because there's no fuel costs. So they get dispatched first day to day. Folks often ask, do I still need to get green energy if I go solar? And the short answer is yes. If you have rooftop solar, many net metering agreements are such that the energy from your rooftop solar panels have to go on the grid, and the utility gets to claim the renewable energy certificates from your rooftop panels. And so signing up for green pricing allows you to buy them back and or get green energy for any portion of the energy that you didn't generate, in the case where you actually do get to retain or you keep that energy behind the meter. And then similarly for community solar, utilities like to lobby. They've helped write a lot of these bills, and often in most states, basically utility retains control of the renewable energy certificates that are generated by a community solar agreement. And so green pricing is the mechanism that allows you to buy them back and or cover the portion of your usage that your subscription doesn't. Basically, do both if you can. And if your utility tells you you can't, well, that's the way utilities are. So how do I explore my solar options? There's, as I mentioned, those 4 options. I won't go really deep into these, but similarly on the homepage, go to the upper left, go to the solar options, type in your zip code. I'm going to type in a Minnesota one so you can quickly see. We have Energy Sage here, Google Project Sunroof, here to help folks with rooftop solar, and then you won't see anything in Wisconsin, but in Minnesota, you've got Energy Sage Community and Join Solar Community. You can click into those, look at what options there are. I will do a quick plug for Google Project Sunroof and skip the others for now, because if all the time I'm hearing, friends and family like, oh, I thought about going solar, but there's that tree and, the sun and the blah, blah, blah. Just pull up Google Project Sunroof and type in your address, and Google has satellite imagery of your rooftop, where the sun hits, how much sun hits it over the course of a whole year. And then you can adjust your sort of average electricity bill, generate some estimates of how big of a solar array you would need to cover your energy use. And then it gives you estimates of what approximately that would cost in terms of upfront, what your savings would be, and how long it would take you to pay it back. This is a really great way to quickly figure out, is it worth my time to go further or not? Because this is one of the biggest things, is if you don't have enough sun, it's really hard to make that money back. And then I'll just quickly say Energy Sage does a very similar thing. But the nice thing about Energy Sage is once you go through that solar suitability analysis, you can then request quotes for installation from their whole certified network. And so you get multiple quotes, and you can compare those quotes then before you decide to go with an installer. So it allows you to comparison shop, is the real value of Energy Sage. Again, we have you can find them on their own, or if you use our link through our site, we get 25% of the commission they receive for a completed sale. So that helps us. No additional cost or charges for going through us, but we do appreciate if you use these links and encourage people to use those links. So this gets us to the end of the home energy transition roadmap. Again, this is a great guide. Print it out, put it on your fridge. But wait, there's more. The hero's journey is not over. And being a green neighbor goes beyond the walls of your home. So there's layers upon layers of, if anyone's familiar with the hero's journey, you end up where you began, but with a new understanding of it. So part of being a green neighbor is being a leader in your community. We are fundamentally, as human social creatures, we mirror one another. So it's important for people to communicate every action that you take as you go through this energy transition. That's to family, to people at work, to people in schools or civic groups that you're part of. Start conversations in person and online. Use whatever authority or access that you have, whether you're a manager, you have power over business decisions, or you have access to email distribution lists. Get the word out. We must facilitate a social and cultural transition, not just a technological one. That's the challenge before us, is how do we get everyone involved in the energy economy in a way that we haven't had to be involved for decades. This is a way of multiplying your impact. And so I think the first thing for folks to do after this call is establish a reoccurring time commitment. This isn't a one-time thing. Set aside time for this journey. Put a time block on your calendar. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's bi-weekly, maybe it's monthly. Pick something that's manageable. Align your commitment possibly to other groups that you're a part of. For example, Fridays for Future provides a really great sort of model of setting aside time every Friday for the climate. Recruit an accountability buddy. Recruit somebody else that you know is thinking about these things or would be curious about these things to go through this process with you, so you can talk to one another, share information, have conversations with contractors, and then go to someone else and say, hey, does this sound reasonable? Additionally, there's a great resource out there called All We Can Save Circles. It's a way to start a sort of a mini book club / action club around climate. They have weekly resources for how do you start interesting conversations with people you know. Or additionally, you can use the Earth Hero app or friends with those folks. It's a really great service where you can set personal goals and reminders on your phone so that you get, buzzed and it says, hey, did you change your, thing? Did you get a quote for a heat pump? Did you switch to green energy? Did you, what have you? So it's important to think about how do we encourage ourselves to build these habits over time before we get into all of the action. The resources that you have to help you lead is first and foremost this webinar recording when it goes out, as well as the deck. I want you guys to take it, use it, share it with others. Say, hey, look at this recording I attended. Would you like to hang out and, you know, start to plan our energy transition together once a week or once a month? So use it to invite other people to join you in action. We also have a social media toolkit. We have a newsletter toolkit. So shout about us on social media. Give shout outs in organizational newsletters, civic orgs. There's a press kit if you have a blog or you want to write an op-ed, or you just have a favorite journalist or podcaster and you want to say, hey, check these folks out. They're doing cool stuff. Your audience wants to know. You can share that. We have tabling resources. So if you want to print out cards, handouts, and talk to people in person, we've got resources for that. There's an action checklist. Another thing you can print and put on your fridge. And of course, you can also join our mailing list to learn about new features, as well as we are hoping to build a upcoming online mini course that's sort of a cohort for people to talk about and make those plans for what does my energy transition look like? How do I share knowledge with others as we try to figure it out together? And so again, just circling all the way back is encourage you as you talk to others, meet people where they're at, start small, lead with empathy and compassion, center this hope, gratitude, and action, because ultimately other people are looking for this opportunity to heal in relationship, because we don't really heal in isolation from these hard things. This process isn't just work. It's not just burden. It's actually an opportunity for our own catharsis and our own growth. And so leaning into the sort of positive aspect of this. And I just highlight that building in those, if you do set up a group to meet regularly, having rituals helps build a sense of purpose and connection in doing this work. And through action, we build our own sense of autonomy and mastery over these topics. And so circling all the way back to hope, gratitude, and action, green neighbor challenge corresponds. Green is why I'm hopeful. Neighbors are why I'm grateful. And it is the challenge is the action that we must take. If this was helpful and you have the resources, we definitely would love to have more monthly donors. We ask people if they can to give $5 a month. Regular monthly donors is what have made all of our work possible, and we will send you a sticker. And then lastly, drop in to the chat, what action are you most excited to take? I'm going to end with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Something that guides our work. If you want to contact us, here's our contact information. Here's all the several links I provided earlier. These will go out in the email tomorrow. And now I'd like to switch over to questions. So I assume there's already questions that have been in the chat. If you have more questions, drop them in the chat now. And Joanna and Sophia will, I think Joanna will send the questions over to me.